Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Hardware Podcast. My name is Jackson Danner alongside my good friend Omar Borja. Today, we are kind of doing a quick recap of week 8, talking about one of our favorite college football awards, at least one of my favorites, and then going into week 9, talking some games to watch and definitely some names to look out for. But first of all, man, Omar, how you doing?
Doing well. I just came back from some mandatory fun, but now I'm doing some fun by choice and talking college football. Yeah, I'm excited for what a crazy week it was. Was able to watch UTEP play Florida Atlantic. UTEP has a chance to be the best football team in Florida they play both Conference USA Florida teams at home. So, they can lay a claim to that at the end of the season. But just a great victory and a big game for bowl eligibility coming up the next 2 weeks for the Miners. But the talk of that game was the crazy blocked extra point that got called back. What a roller coaster of emotions. If you haven't seen that video, in short, UTEP player got his helmet knocked off by the extra point itself, continued to participate by running after the football, put his hands up and ran away from the football when the ball was at midfield, and then the Miners ran the ball back for a 2-point conversion, only for it to be called back and the refs to blow the call and have FAU re-kick the extra point, which they should not have re-kicked. The 2-point conversion should have been called back and the game should have been 21-20, but instead FAU tied the game again, but luckily the Miners won. So
It
if you're
should be
confused,
a dead ball as soon as his helmet came off, right? Because the play is dead. The end result is clear regardless. It should be 21-20, right? I get not having the 2-point conversion, but you certainly can't overturn that and just have it redo it.
but yeah, the thing was he continued to. I guess the play can go on, but he
He
by
continued
continuing
to
to run.
participate Damian Pierce angry run style, and they called it back.
Exactly. He just ran. He was just running after football, like not touching anyone. But Miners won. That's all that matters. And hopefully they can get ball eligibility.
Did anyone see Kyle Brent on the video of that by chance?
No, but it made the rounds on social media. It was probably the wildest play of the season, like this entire season. Honestly. um, but yeah, aside from that, I think the biggest statements were made in the Big 12. Kansas kind of got eliminated from playoff contention. Oklahoma State kept themselves alive for playoff contention. In the American too, UCF is eliminated from the year. Well, I won't say eliminated, but they'll need some help for the New Year's Six as they lost to ECU and Tulane continue to look good.
I think the double overtime game between TCU and Oklahoma State that we saw earlier in the year is looking like an accurate representation of what's going on in the Big 12. It's going to be neck and neck. And I just want to point out, if TCU does go to the Big 12 championship, and it's certainly looking like they will, it's about a 30-minute drive from M&G Carter Stadium to AT&T Stadium. You don't think fans would make the drive for their first Big 12 championship not against Baker Mayfield?
I think they will, but you have to think about that's like the third time they played in Cowboy Stadium the past 5 years. Because remember the Ohio State game that was at Cowboy Stadium? I don't even think that game came close to selling out, to be honest with you. I'm gonna look that up really quick.
But it's a Big 12 championship. Come on, man.
It is. I'm not taking that away from the program, but it's just I think we kind of underestimate the size of, I guess, TCU. TCU was a Mountain West school not too long ago, which I'm looking at the attendance on that 2018 TCU Ohio State game, because again, I think if I was a TCU fan, I would much rather watch Ohio State than the Big 12 title game, because Ohio State's an opponent that TCU doesn't get to play often. Early season they're ranked 15, 64,362. I don't think it'll sell out, but it'll draw well. I definitely think it'll draw well. But again, I'm not saying they're a small fan base, but it's not the Texas Longhorns if they were to play in the Big 12 title game like they did.
It definitely is. I think it certainly suffers from, we see a lot of non-rural parts of the country that have college football programs like at UCLA, like Miami, that struggle to get attendance, ironically, right, at their games, probably because there's a lot else to do around campus, right? So I think TCU being in the greater DFW area probably to some degree struggles with that same thing, right? Would you rather go to downtown Dallas or would you rather watch a TCU game? So I think they certainly have a fan base that is struggling to that. No one's going to deny that Miami doesn't have or no one's going to deny that Miami has a strong fan base. No one's going to deny USC, UCLA, and these greater Los Angeles based schools have a great fan base. We don't see the attendance like at all on Saturday, right? And so to your point, Omar, it's not the strongest fan base, but I think they do struggle with that.
Yeah, I did not mean to insult TCU fans, but I mean, hey, I guess it's a challenge. Show up to the Big 12 title game if if they play there. So I mean, that's just it. But yeah, I mean, again, this weekend, I think this weekend's certainly louder. Oh, of course, who can forget Syracuse versus Clemson? I mean, Clemson just always seems to figure it out.
Classic.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, Syracuse will still find themselves playing in a fine bowl, whether it be the Pinstripe Bowl, which I had them projected for, or even the Cheez-It Bowl. Down in Florida, which is, constantly gets the ACC's best selections along with the Big 12's best selections. So they should end up in a good bowl, but just probably one of the biggest what ifs of the college football season if Syracuse does end up going 11-1. So it's sad, but again, big takeaway from the weekend.
I haven't looked at the seniority of a lot of Syracuse's leaders, but if they do have a lot of leaders on that team that come back next year, you have that Clemson game at home. It's something to at least circle on the schedule in preseason.
Exactly. And I mean, Syracuse always seems to play better against Clemson. I mean, this probably a slam dunk in the Carrier Dome. It's a tough place to play. It's not Death Valley. So again, they could pull the upset there, but yeah, just heartbreaking there. But the ACC gets a bit clear. So just a great week in general. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. We can go ahead. Do you want to go ahead and go to our HBCU Pigskin Showdown Players of the Week? Or
yeah, do you want to share your guy first, or?
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and go with my HBCU Pigskin Showdown Player of the Week to watch. Sidney Gibbs, the running back from Shaw University. Man, he really has an amazing story. He was a 2,000-yard back in high school who ended up ending his career in high school by breaking his right leg. Really hurt his chances of getting recruited by some upper level like FBS, FCS schools. Thankfully, Shaw University in D2 had actually already offered him. So that's where he ended up really finding a home. Right now, he and Andre Brandon have really been splitting the load at Shaw. But coming on campus, like right away on his freshman year, even, he was really making an impact on the year. Right now, he's 89 carries for 441 yards and 3 touchdowns. Shaw's offense, they're not really going to be one where the quarterback is lined under center, I formation, going up the middle. This is going to be much more of a spread. They're going to run 10, 11 personnel. And when they're going to run, it's going to be a wide or it's going to be a draw. When you have that type of running style for an offense, you need a running back that has patience and vision. Sidney certainly has plenty of both of those. He waits for his blocks to develop. You can tell he spends a lot of time in the film room studying those defensive lines that he faces and their tendencies. Omar, what I saw what I say almost every week, right? If you can't catch, you can't play. Man, he can run a hell of a wheel route. It's so impressive to watch him. It's not just the screen game. He's getting involved on all kinds of routes. He's really excellent and very keen in on finding those soft spots in zone coverage, right? In all honesty, he's probably one of the best running back route runners that I've seen below the FBS level. So he has the patience and vision to get past the front seven. He has the speed to beat the post safety or almost any defensive back to the end zone. And he has the toughness that for a 5'9", 190 running back, he gets way more yards after contact than he should. I do see some shades of what I saw in Kadarius Toney and how they used him in the screen game at Florida. He's slippery. He has great contact balance despite his size. How I think he may project to the next level, I would love to see him get involved in special teams on kick returner and punt return duty, just because he's so comfortable and can navigate so well in space. That's something you really look for on special teams, is great depth perception. I don't know if his size would allow him to be an NFL running back just because he doesn't have that Darren Sproles type upper level speed. One thing that I might like to see him try out a little bit is being a slot receiver, right? You think of Wes Welker and Julian Edelman, guys that were 5'9", 5'10". He has the footwork. He has the ball skills. We've already seen it already. He's comfortable in route running and reading coverage, something I hope Shaw experiments with. But in the meantime, man, it is a hell of a kid to watch, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, and the easy solution each week would be to pick another running back, a certain running back, also in the CIA, Jada Byers, who did it again, 30 carries, 277 yards, 4 touchdowns against Lincoln. But I mean, it's just great. Like the thing is, I think the common denominator between all the backs we've chosen the past few weeks, whether it be Jada Byers, whether it be the back you just mentioned out of Shaw, and then Torian Taylor last week for Tuskegee, these are all small, slippery guys that can make a difference on special teams, and you just hope to see them, whether it be because I mean players like them slip through the cracks all the time. And like I said last week, that's why the HBCU picks and showdown exists. But maybe you see them like making huge plays in the USFL and XFL. And look, Cavante Turpin's the talk of I guess the special teams NFL. If there was a Pro Bowl, Cavante Turpin would probably be the return specialist, I think, if there was a Pro Bowl. But again, like you see guys like this, and I can see them like make that progression, like being a huge playmaker in like the USFL or XFL, and then make their way to the NFL. So, I'm excited to see him go. And what a strong stable of backs in the CIAA. For my player, I'm gonna go out west, and I'm gonna go about a couple levels down. Even though NAIA football fans tell you that they're on par with D2, which some with a lot of programs are. I'm gonna go with Larry Harrington out of Langston University in Oklahoma. And again, like you think about the big four in HBCU conferences, the MEAC, SWAC, SEAC, CIAA. You have a guy that plays in NAIA for Langston. He had an absolutely electric performance for Langston. 385 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 67 rushing yards. It was 126 before sacks and losses, but he had a 66-yard rushing touchdown. And Langston came back from a 21-3 deficit and a 31-10 deficit to defeat Ottawa University of Arizona in overtime on a fumble return. Larry Harrington's having a very solid year, 1,083 yards, 11 touchdowns, also doing it well on the ground with 4 rushing touchdowns. And this is a guy, an exciting quarterback. He's got good size, 6'2", 206. I mean, and again, quarterbacks, they always slip through the cracks, like especially at small schools like Langston. I would definitely love to see Larry Harrington get a shot. A very exciting player, a great passer. And I mean, again, if that whole tourism element of bowl games, the HBCU picks and showdown, bring some folks from Oklahoma, Coach Grove, Coach Williams. I'm sure some folks from Oklahoma are willing to get out of the biting cold and go down to Selma and Marion and see some great civil rights monuments. So bring some tourists from from Oklahoma and make it happen, Coach Williams, Coach Grove.
And I really love that we're both talking about not just the MEAC and SWAC. Obviously, we pay plenty of attention to those conferences and the athletes in them, but HBCUs are at like all levels of college football, right? Minus the FBS, obviously, but every level below that, you see levels. And that's something that I'm glad that we're both actively looking to scout. I know Coach Williams and Coach Grove put in a hell of a lot more work than we do scouting those levels even, right? So I just love that that's something the Pigskin Showdown is doing. That's something that we're trying to bring attention to. And just, man, they deserve love too, man. Everything below that. It's not just the MEAC and SWAC. We see probably more attention than we've ever seen at the FCS level HBCUs, but love talking below that level as well.
Yeah, we're doing the cleanup work. That's what I mean. They're no doubt that they're scouting way more than us, but we're just cleaning up. Just finding the the scraps left behind, but not scraps. I mean that's a poor way to describe them, but just the diamonds in the rough for them. So
exactly, definitely, man. Well, we'll go ahead and go to our main part of the program today. We're going to be talking about the Jim Thorpe Award. If you're not familiar with it, it goes to the top defensive back in the country. Today, ironically, we're recording this on Tuesday night. The 12 semifinalists for the Jim Thorpe Award actually came out today. So I'm briefly going to run over them, and then Omar, you and I are going to go over kind of our top 3 among those semifinalists. We're not going to talk about anyone that isn't eligible to win the award that isn't on this list. So we'll go ahead and I'll run through these. Omar, if you have something to say about any of them, feel free to butt in. First, we have Trevon Flowers, the safety from Tennessee. Emmanuel Forbes, the corner from Mississippi State. By the way, he holds the pick six record for Mississippi State with 5. And among active defensive backs in the FBS, he's third in interceptions. He's first in the SEC with 13 career picks. Bentley Sanders, the safety from Nevada. Jason Taylor, the safety from Oklahoma State. Christopher Smith, the free safety from Georgia. Joey Porter Jr., the corner from Penn State. Yes, it is the Steeler great son, right? Joey Porter. Eric Hallett II, the safety from Pitt. Lathan Ransom, the safety from Ohio State. Devin Witherspoon from the corner from Illinois. Like, honestly, he may be the best coverage corner, if not, or one of the best, if not the best. Not really super involved in the run game responsibilities, but that's a different story for a different time. And then Tre'Vius Hodges Tomlinson, the corner from TCU, his ability to change direction and his acceleration like really popped off the screen. I watched his tape from 2021 SMU. I don't have any 22 tape available. But man, all these guys have had a great year. And then Christopher Smith, the safety from Georgia, Clark Phillips the third from Utah, and then Antonio Johnson, the safety from Texas A&M. So I may have tipped my hat to my top 3, but Omar, I'll let you go ahead and give your 3 first.
Yeah, so just some notes, just some stats here on some of the guys you touched on. So start off with Trevin Flowers, 40 tackles, Tennessee, great safety. Emmanuel Forbes, 5 interceptions, 2 pick sixes, a block field goal, more on him later. Eric Hallett, 3 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, second team Pro Football Focus All-American mid-season, that is. Tre'Vius Hodges Tomlinson, hurt a little bit by the statistics in the same way that Joey Porter Jr. is hurt, but truly a shutdown corner, only 1 interception, 4 pass breakups, which shows that these Big 12 offenses aren't throwing to him. Clark Phillips, 5 interceptions, 85.9 coverage grade. Antonio Johnson, 48 tackles, 13 tackle games for Texas A&M. Joey Porter Jr., 11 pass breakups, including 6 versus Purdue. More on him later. Lathan Ransom having a solid year for Ohio State with 29 tackles, a pick, 2 pass breakups. Bentley Sanders, definitely more on him. 5 interceptions, 51 tackles, 3 forced fumbles. Jason Taylor Jr., 52 tackles, 3 interceptions, 6 pass breakups. Christopher Smith for Georgia has 21 tackles, 4th best on the team, 3 TFLs, 2 picks, and 3 pass breakups. And now, as for my top 3, I got Devin Witherspoon at number 1, Emmanuel Forbes at number 2, and then number 3, I have Bentley Sanders with my 4th and 5th guy, just, I guess, missing the cut if I were to have a ballot. I'm not sure these ballots work if it's just a top 3 you give, but the 4th and 5th guys for me are Joey Porter Jr. and Jason Taylor. So starting off with Devin Witherspoon, I think Devin Witherspoon's really the front runner for this because you look at the winner last year, Kobe Bryant. He had the best combination of stats and I guess that level of respect, because who was on the other side of Kobe Bryant? You had Sauce Gardner, and there was the hype heading into 2021 season that people don't like, you don't score on Sauce Gardner. So they tested Kobe Bryant and he delivered. And he delivered well, so he won the Thorpe Award. It's kind of the same thing with like Devin Witherspoon, except schools are teams are actually throwing to Devin Witherspoon. Like just some of the PFF figures for him, he's the 20th graded defender in the nation, number 4 in the Big Ten, the number 1 graded Power 5 cornerback in the nation. He has out of 42 passes thrown to him, only 13 have been completed. And it's just not just that. I think the thing that separates Witherspoon from a lot of these guys is that the defense he plays on is a truly transcendent defense. Probably one of the best defenses we'll see either, I guess, in the past 10 years. As of now, if everything continues on course for Illinois, they're averaging less than 9 points per game, 143 passing yards a game, 2 touchdown passes all year. So I think, again, like Illinois, I mean, Chase Brown's having a great year as well, but I mean, I think we were talking about before this podcast, like if you took a guy like Antonio Johnson away from the Texas A&M defense, you took a guy like Lathan Ransom away from the Ohio State defense, Christopher Smith out of Georgia. Those guys are great players, but there's just so much talent around them, like so much great NFL talent around them that, the defense would still be the same. Illinois, talented team still, but they don't have the talent that Georgia has. I mean, and I'm not slamming Illinois in any way, but that's just a common reality. So that's my perception of Witherspoon. He's my number one guy. My number two guy is Emmanuel Forbes because I think he's the most electric out of all of these players. He's got 5 interceptions, he's got two pick sixes and a blocked field goal. But the problem is Mississippi State's in the middle of they're probably going to end up in the middle of the pack in the SEC. And that's going to hurt his chances a lot. I mean, he's going to be overshadowed by, like yourself, like you have 2 SEC players in your top 3. There's plenty of great defensive back talent in the SEC. And for that reason, Forbes may be overlooked, but I just can't deny that when you think about the defensive back position, you think about a guy like Ed Reed, you think about, of course, Deion Sanders, guys that can change the game in an instant. And that's definitely what Emmanuel Forbes does. For my third guy, I got Bentley Sanders because Bentley Sanders, again, he's hurt by the fact he plays in the Mountain West. Again, G5 bias is real, even though a G5 player won the award last year. But Bentley Sanders only plays on a team that's in the group of 5, but Nevada has not been having the best season. It's their 2-6 right now. But he's got 5 interceptions, 51 tackles, and 3 forced fumbles. Like, he's definitely an impactful player. And when we think about the Jim Thorpe Award, I think we look at it as kind of a cornerback award. Bentley Sanders is from the free safety position, just a guy that plays through all facets of the game, pass, run, all facets of defense, and does it so well for Nevada. And again, if you think Nevada wouldn't be doing so hot or isn't doing so hot now, it's just I can only imagine how bad they'd be doing without Bentley Sanders on defense. So for my last 2 out, I know it's a little bit extra. I got Joey Porter Jr. 11. He's got 11 pass breakups on the year, but for him, it's like teams kind of tested him first game of the year against Purdue. Purdue love to throw the ball. Charlie Jones, Aiden Hutchinson, but he had 6 pass breakups in that game. Only 5 since the rest of the year. So it's kind of like teams are kind of like shying away from him. And then after that, I got Clark Phillips on the outside. He's got 5 picks and 85.9 coverage grade. But you look at the marquee games he's played, UCLA, USC, their pass offenses still did, great, especially against USC. They Caleb Williams had 5 touchdowns, over 300 yards in that game. I think over 380 yards, and 2 USC receivers went for over 100 yards in that game. So again, Clark Phillips has great stats. I can't deny he's a great player, but it's his presence on the field it wasn't as impactful in those big games. So that's my top 3 and the first 2 out. So sorry if it took a while, Jackson.
No, you're good, man. I love it when we take our time to really break stuff down. I really, really enjoy hearing your thoughts with it, man. I'm gonna flip my third and first man out just because he really convinced me on Devin Witherspoon. I was a big fan of his. I did have him as my first guy out, but man, I'm gonna go ahead and kick him inside to 3. One stat that really popped off the page to me was he has a 32.8 QBR when targeted this season, which is excellent, like an excellent number to have. I also really like about him, he is one of the better tacklers, it looks like here, right? He's a lot more willing to get physical. In the Big Ten, you have to. I did mention he does, I don't want to say struggles, he's just not asked much in the run game, right? So he is physical, but because he is pretty much exclusively a wide corner, he's not really going to be used in that way. Now, I don't blame Illinois for not wanting to kick him inside or move him off of the X or Z receivers, right? So I get that. It's just something that for the next level, I would like to see him develop a little bit more. So he'll be my number 3 guy. My number guy that I had as number 3, then now I'm switching to number 4, Christopher Smith, man, the safety from Georgia. He's actually the only one in this group that I was able to get 2022 season, like this season's all 22 from. I was able to watch it against Oregon. Man, just how much of a downhill runner when he is and how physical he is to get TFLs, to make stomps in the run game. And then just, you saw what you really like to see in any defensive back. You didn't see the ball coming his way that often, right? I get it. He's like a post safety a lot of the time, but they were not throwing his way. And you can really see in the acceleration and just the ability to really attack the ball was just so impressive that I really had to put that on. So, man, So I'll have Christopher Smith, the safety from Georgia, as 4. Devin Witherspoon for the corner from Illinois is 3. I have Clark Phillips the third from Utah as my second guy, man. Utah, they're kind of moving him around in their system, right? Where about 2/3 of the time he's wide and the rest is in the slot. I watched this tape from last year against UCLA. One thing that really popped off the page to me, he really has that cliff mentality that you love to see in slot man coverage, right? Where, hey, either you or I are moving. Once we get to that breaking point in the round, it's not going to be me. So he really has that. It forces guys and receivers to redirect their routes and screws up pretty much every timing route that's in the route tree. A lot of the completions that are being like thrown on him, it's where the receiver was in motion in man-to-man coverage, where your footwork can't be as precise just naturally. He also, in zone coverage, a lot of times is responsible for the flat, right? So very involved in the screen game when he is in zone coverage, especially, and definitely not willing to get physical. And he does get a few TFLs from that as well. Other completions that he has is it's more of an offensive scheme fit, right? It's not really stuff that he's allowing as much, which is always something you love to see. My only complaint from him that I really have, and he may have fixed it in this season, right? Like I said, most of what I saw was from last year. He did tip his hat a lot of times when he was doing something outside of coverage. So whether that was a corner blitz from the slot, whether that was disguising as a slot man corner and then bailing out to the backside for his cover 2 assignment, he did pretty much show most of the time what he was doing pre-snap. Hopefully he's cleaned that up a lot this year, but it's definitely something he needs to improve before he gets to the next level. And then my top guy, Antonio Johnson, the safety from Texas A&M. Last year only allowed 228 yards on 62 targets. Just a really, really elite coverage. Just a really, really elite coverage safety. Probably the best, maybe not the best defensive back overall in coverage. I think I do have to give that to Witherspoon, but man, as far as safeties go, he definitely is it. He's not bad as a pass rusher either. He had an incredible forced fumble versus Prairie View. So, man, put a lot of good tape up against Alabama. Is against some what are going to be day 1 and day 2 receivers in the NFL draft.
Yeah, and we have different perspectives for our top 5, but again, like it's really good reasoning, Jackson. I mean, of course, you go into the all 22, and of course, I bring up the more of the writer's perspective, because again, like who votes on these awards? It's I guess most of it is like guys, it's writers. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to frame it in a better way. It's like most of it's like guys like me who just like enjoy going to games and like write about it. It's like and me, like I just want to put the record out. I am a writer, but I hardly. I'd say it's like 99.9% of the times I don't speak ill of players. I try not to. I can't remember the last time I even like spoke ill of a player, but just want to clear that out. But yeah, like again, like it's like ideally like the top answer would be the guy that looks best in all 22. But I mean that's who should win the award. But again, like writers, it's like
that's not how it works though in real life.
Exactly.
Like it's not how it works. It's going to be your writers that are voting for it. Now, because of that, it was Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network, I believe, that said in all his years in being in war rooms on NFL draft days, not one college football award was ever mentioned in that time, right? That is something that like, hey, maybe down the road, we do put more value in that as this stuff is becoming more and more accessible. But man, I would love to see that someday, but I completely get it. Hey, storylines are what's appealing. And hey, especially in college football, it's so important, man. Like not all of this is going to be like NFL make or break for the NFL, right? Sometimes you just got to sit back and look at, what are the best storylines and from a writer's perspective, what's enjoyable to have going on.
Exactly. So yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. But I mean, we have our guys, and hopefully we'll see what you, the fans, whoever watching this, has for your top 3 for this award. But I guess speaking of storylines, Jackson, you want to go on to the games for this week? I think it's week 9. I mean,
I'm hard to believe we're saying that, man.
Yeah, I think so. I guess what is your first game to watch of this week?
My first game of the week to watch is going to be Pitt at North Carolina. I feel like North Carolina has kind of quietly had a really good season, right? They're 6-1. Pitt was a team that we had very high expectations despite the loss of Kenny Pickett coming into the year. And right now they're below Georgia Tech in the ACC Coastal standings. Pitt has one of the better running backs though in the country, right? And Israel Abanikanda. Man, he's fourth in rushing yards in the nation as it already has 13 rushing touchdowns on the year. He comes to town the week after we find out that Ray Vahasek, the nose tackle from North Carolina, is actually out for the year, the fifth-year senior. On the other side of the ball, though, when North Carolina is on offense, offensive coordinator Phil Longo really talked about the ball distribution throughout the offense, right? And that's something you can really see him implement. He bragged on the heat map where it shows Drake May has really passed at all three levels within that offense and around the perimeter as much as he has passed on the inside between the hashes. Man, something's got to give on that side now, right? North Carolina is 12th in passing offense in the nation. Pitt is only allowing 209 passing yards a game. So looking forward to seeing that matchup on both sides of the ball. You can watch at 8 o'clock Eastern time on the ACC network.
Yeah, and it's funny the way you mentioned North Carolina quietly having a good year. It's like we gave up on North Carolina after they gave up over 60 points. Yeah, almost 60 points to App State. And then we gave out North Carolina again, even though they won. We gave up on them again against Notre Dame. But again, like they're quietly having a great year. That's like they're looking like a one-loss team. In I guess when they head to the excuse me, ACC title game, they look like they'll only have one loss.
I think that might change pretty soon, though, because pretty soon we're going to see a bunch of other one-loss teams that we're putting ahead of North Carolina become two-loss teams. It's just math, Omar. A lot of these teams are going to end up playing each other in November. So that's something to see. Hey, I'm curious about, can North Carolina, can the narrative surrounding them really shoot them up a little bit? Remember, we don't know any of the rankings right now. The inaugural college football playoff rankings for the season come out a week from tonight on Tuesday. So something to watch out for as well. Where does the committee place North Carolina?
Exactly. And I mean, for me, I just think they've looked the best out of every team in the ACC Coastal at this point. I mean, like Pitt had a bad loss this past weekend against Louisville. I'm going to call it a bad loss, even though Louisville is 4-3, because Louisville has not looked great at many points in this year. So yeah, that's just my thoughts there. I guess going to the opposite spectrum, and I guess another day of the week, we have Ivy League Friday night. We got a battle of the Metro North here. You know, the battle of the Metro, where of course you got the subway system for Columbia, and then you got the MTA North. You know, you can ride the train up to New Haven. So we got Yale Columbia, and this game, I think heading into the season, this could have been a sneaky good game in the Ivy League, and it's still a good game. Columbia beat Dartmouth last year and then put themselves in the Ivy League race until Yale beat them. Until Yale beat them. And then this year, this game's at the Yale Bowl, I believe. I believe this one is at the Yale Bowl. Checking that right now. Yes, no, it's at Robert Kraft Field at Lawrence VN Stadium. So it's in Manhattan instead of Yale Bowl. But last year, Columbia's Yale Ivy League title hopes were dashed against Yale, but they still had a solid year and they got 7-3. This year, they've taken a bit of a step back as they lost their leading rusher last year. But they're still a solid team. They're led by a strong defense, allowing less than 17 points per game. Yale also has a strong defense, allowing 21 points per game. So again, this should be a low-scoring slog. Kind of like what you think of when you think of most of these Ivy League games. Should be a solid game, though. I mean, Yale comes in at 4-2. They lost last week to Penn, and I don't think people are talking about the Penn Quakers enough, as they're 6-0. And it looks like both Penn and Princeton, we could have two 9-0 teams playing the final week in the FCS season for the Ivy League title. How great would that be? So again, we got Columbia Yale Ivy League Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPNU. And again, these teams are middle of the pack, but they're still solid teams. Should be a defensive slog. I'd say you take the under on this one.
Definitely, man. Hey, like I say every week, we're really trying to pick up this tradition for all of America and all of the college football world. Ivy League Friday nights. Skip the local high school game and support the Ivies.
Thank you, Jackson. I mean, I feel like your excitement is matching mine slowly but surely, so I really appreciate it.
Izzy's is too. Um, Omar, I know you usually don't like me talking about the college game day game that they're traveling to, right? But this one I think you might approve of. Southern at Jackson State this week. And if the SWAC championship was today, this would be it for Southern. And they started out at 500, started out at 2-2. They've won their last 4 games by an average margin of 33 points, right? Now, that said, the SWAC West is not quite as locked up as the SWAC East is right now. It's very realistic that Prairie View A&M can win the division if they drop this game. On the other side of the ball, Jackson State, man, they just have like so many playmakers. It's not really that fair. Obviously, Coach Prime's son really leading the way with that. 10 receivers right now that they have with double-digit catches, 5 of them with multiple touchdowns. It's just ridiculous the amount of depth they have on the outside of the ball. You can watch that game 2:00 Eastern on ESPN3.
So, I mean, I love that college game day is going to HBCU, to an HBCU, especially a rivalry as fierce as the Boombox Classic. And like, you think of when you think of SWAC rivalries, what's the first one that comes to mind? The Bayou Classic, right? Grambling Southern. But from what I've heard this one is even more fierce. Grambling Southern is just like it's kind of like the Rose Bowl. I mean, it's like there's a lot of pomp and circumstance. There's a lot of hate on the field too, but Southern and Jackson State hate each other, and I'm excited for it. But it's like if game day is gonna go to this game, why not have Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit call the game? Like, I mean, because yeah, I'm just frustrated by that, honestly. But yeah, I'm excited though to see this matchup. I mean, we could see these teams again. Prairie View A&M, saw them at the Cotton Bowl Stadium for the State Fair Classic. They looked good against Grambling, even though a lot of the SWAC has looked good against Grambling as they're rebuilding under Hugh Jackson. But Prairie View looked good. They made the SWAC title game last year and lost to Jackson State. So a payback game, there's a lot of motivation in payback games. So I mean, I would not sleep on Prairie View A&M if they end up taking the SWAC West, but Southern looks good too. I mean, Southern they've been the most consistent program in the SWAC West for the past few years, in my opinion. So I'm excited for this one too. Shedora Sanders kind of gets another. The nation gets another glimpse at Shedora Sanders this weekend after the Celebration Bowl, and RG3 has put him on his Heisman radar, which, speaking of Heisman radars and FCS, I'm going to talk about a guy for my next game that definitely should be on everyone's Heisman radar. We got Tim DeMorat, the Josh Allen of the B train, Holy Cross Fordham. In that game, we have Fordham at 6-1. Holy Cross is at 7-0. And a lot of FCS playoff projections have Holy Cross getting a seed, which is super rare for the Patriot League. And you look at the past Patriot League champions, Holy Cross was great last year, but we're not too far removed from Holy Cross going to the playoffs as a 7-4 team in 2019, or even I think 2017. There was a 5-7 Patriot League or 5-6 Patriot League champion in Lafayette, which I'm gonna look that up really quick just to make sure. But this game is for all the marbles. You have Holy Cross. They're the three-time in a row Patriot League champions. As I'm looking up that 2017 Lafayette, might have been 2016. Anyhow, there was a year where the Patriot League sent a 5-7 team to the playoffs. But Holy Cross, they're the class of the Patriot League, going for their 4th straight title. But Fordham is not too far behind, and just Tim DeMorat. Yes, Shedeur Sanders having a great year for Jackson State, but also Coach Sanders is keeping his son in when he's up by 40 points on Mississippi Valley State, but that's none of my business. But Tim DeMorat is already thrown for 3,000 yards in 7 games and 33 touchdowns for Fordham. Like, I think there's a very realistic chance that maybe Tim DeMorat comes close to Bailey Zappi's FCS touchdown record of 62 touchdowns if Fordham makes the playoffs. But I think Fordham needs this game because I don't know if they get an at-large berth if they lose to Holy Cross, because they don't really have any more strong wins in non-conference play. Holy Cross, on the other hand, talk about a contrast in styles. You have Matt Sluka, who he's going to run you over. He's going to run the ball great. The Zach Wilson of the Seven Hills of Worcester. But this year he's improved so much as a passer. He's got over 1,400 yards, which is just 100 below his passing totals from all of last season. Last year they had a 2-quarterback system, but he's truly grown as a passer. This game's for all the marbles. I'm so excited for it. And I'm also very nervous as a Holy Cross fan. And you can see that game on ESPN Plus. And looking at the time there, the time for that game will be at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So Holy Cross Fordham battle probably two of the best quarterbacks in FCS and huge playoff implications. We're talking seeds and even at-large berths potentially.
Definitely, man. No, looking forward to that one as well. I'll go ahead and go with my last game of the week to watch: Cincinnati at UCF. Man, we talk every week on Bulls and Booze during Monday Night Football halftime on Instagram Live about the Group of Five bowl race, right? Honestly, this is the biggest game in that race that we have until Thanksgiving weekend. If UCF wins with a degree of decidedness, it's both an opportunity to hop into the AAC championship and be a resume builder for the committee. If Cincinnati wins, congrats, Cincinnati, you just survived, right? There's not really much else to it. I'm curious to see maybe Cincinnati has a more aggressive go-getter mentality and a sense of ownership. And if Cincinnati is going to be like just trying not to lose, the winner likely plays Tulane in the AAC championship, and the game is played at the more highly ranked team according to the college football playoff rankings. So this game is going to be important when it comes to mine versus head-to-head opponents, right? So looking forward to seeing this one be played. It's going to be 3:30 Eastern time on ESPN in the Bounce House.
Yeah, and again, who would have thought that East Carolina would upset UCF and reduce their chances? I'm not saying their chances are over if they do beat Cincinnati. Their chances for the Cotton Bowl are pretty. I think they're still pretty good. But a team that'll be watching this game carefully, or two teams would be Coastal Carolina and Boise State. Boise State, believe it or not, they have turned things around since the UTEP game. I mean, I don't think I've seen Boise State at a lower point aside from the UTEP game, when they didn't just lose a close game to UTEP, which UTEP isn't a bad program, but Boise State, you don't think of Boise State losing games to UTEP. They lost by 17 in that game, not even a close game on the road at the Sun Bowl on a great Friday night. But Boise State, believe it or not, is still potentially in the Group of Five New Year's Six race, and the same thing applies for Coastal Carolina, who, again, believe it or not, a couple weeks ago they dropped a game to Old Dominion by a lot. Rumor has it Blake Watson still running on the teal turf. But again, so those are two schools will be watching that game very closely, and it's just interesting that there will be an undisputed champion in the American because all the top teams are playing each other. You don't often get that in the conference with 11 teams. So it's just a blessing this year. And it might also be a curse too for the American because you don't have teams that are just scooting by and like not playing one or two of the elite teams. Like they're getting the full gauntlet in this conference. So for my final game, again, going on the opposite end of the spectrum, we're going FCS Pioneer Football League, and we have two 3-1 teams playing. We have two 3-1 teams playing for in Valparaiso and Dayton. And why is that significant? Because St. Thomas right now is just running through everyone in the Pioneer Football League. But because St. Thomas joined the FCS level in 2021, they're still transitioning. They're going through the same problem that James Madison's going through with the transition rules where they cannot play in the postseason. I think it's even more harsh in the FCS, as I don't think St. Thomas can qualify for the playoffs until I think 2024, 2025. So they have a couple more years than James Madison in their transition. So with that being said, every other game with all the one-loss teams in the Pioneer Football League, whether it's Davidson, Valparaiso, or Dayton, or even Butler, all those games matter. Valpo and Dayton play each other. The game's even more huge for Valparaiso. Valparaiso has never made the FCS playoffs, and aside from a single Pioneer Football League championship game when they had a championship in the 2000s, the last postseason bowl game or postseason game that Valparaiso's played in was the Cigar Bowl back in I think it was the 1954 Cigar Bowl. Look that up really quick. Wrote an article about a couple weeks ago. But Valparaiso's last postseason game, aside from the conference championship in 2003, yes, it was the 1951 Cigar Bowl on New Year's Day of that year. So Valparaiso, it's a really interesting matchup because Dayton, you have two strong defenses. Dayton's only allowing 21 points per game. They have 4 players with over 4 TFLs. Valparaiso, though, they're led by a strong run game. Aaron Dawson ran for 241 yards and 3 touchdowns last week against Morehead State. He's averaging 800, or he has not averaging 800 yards. He has 800 yards, over 800 yards in the season in 7 games. And maybe if he has a big game and leads Valparaiso to the conference title in the Pioneer Football League, then, just maybe he may get some Walter Payton love, as that award has not been given to a running back since 2003, an award we talked extensively about in the spring of 2021. But again, this essentially serves as an elimination game. I think both schools kind of need some help. They need St. Thomas, frankly, to keep winning, as St. Thomas beat Davidson earlier this year, the back-to-back defending champs. And they have San Diego this week. San Diego also has 1 loss. They need St. Thomas to beat San Diego. So San Diego has 2 losses, as both of those schools avoid the Toreros. Or actually, no, not both of them avoid the Toreros. Valpo's beaten the Toreros, and Dayton avoids San Diego. So again, we're always up for first-time playoff teams, FCS playoffs. And, this is the storyline to watch in the FCS.
Absolutely, man. No, looking forward to that one too. Just a great week of college football at all levels for sure. Yeah, man. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Anything else you got before we hop off here?
No, I mean, I really don't have anything else. I guess I just want to touch again on the Cotton Bowl race. I mean, it's interesting too, because this may be the weakest group of 5 Cotton Bowl or New Year's Six race that we've seen in a long time. And we don't be surprised if you see a 2-loss American team in the Cotton Bowl, or if you see but I think honestly, not even under a team ranked in the 20s. I mean, this is reminiscent of the 2014 New Year's Six race, where there just weren't that many contenders. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited for this weekend. A lot of good football to be played, and things are clearing up. Things are starting to clear up, as the playoff rankings come and go, or begin to be formed, and the bowl race takes shape. It's a great time of the year.
Absolutely, man. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Well, yeah, man. Well, you have a great rest of your night, and until next time.
Until next time. Yep. Until next time, everyone. Peace, love, and soul.